Some tracks are tough, but allow you mistakes. Others are far less forgiving. Detroit is definitely among the latter, with almost non-existent runoff and violent bumps throughout. In a series which has seen those who make the fewest mistakes be the most successful, today will be extra painful if you don't mind your P's and Q's. Let's see who can survive Belle as we get ready to watch the PCA Sim Racing Series 9 Club Class, live here on Podium Esports. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is DJ Clark. Cameron Aubernon is on social media, and Ryan Bauer is producing while using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Series 9 emphasizes driver patience and racecraft skills with intense traffic management. Before we get to the more open circuits, drivers' focus is taken to the limit on one of the few street layouts available in iRacing. However, before we get to the racing itself, we want to remind you that Pirelli is back as the PCA Sim Racing title sponsor for Series 9. Pirelli was founded in Milan in 1872 and today stands as a global brand known for its cutting-edge technology, high-end production, excellence, and passion for innovation that draws heavily on its Italian roots. Pirelli is among the world's major producers of tires and is an OEM supplier to Porsche. Find out more about Pirelli at www.pirelli.com. Also, the series is brought to you by Six Sigma Sim Racing, which was founded in 2021 by automotive engineers as a new sim racing equipment provider. After 1 year, Six Sigma now has divisions in the USA, Japan, Australia, and Europe, providing the best valued sim racing cockpits and peripherals. Six Sigma offers 10% off to any PCA member from the website, and the coupon code is PCA Sim. For more information about Six Sigma Sim Racing, please visit the website at sixsigmasimracing.com. That's the number 6, sigmasimracing.com. Well, as we've come to Detroit, they may not be racing here anymore after this year, DJ, but at least we've got it on iRacing to continue to test drivers.
Yeah, we certainly do, Joe, and it's a real shame that drivers aren't going to be able to race around this Belle Isle circuit after this year, because this is a true gem of a street circuit. Good overtaking opportunities going down into turn 3 and into turn 7, but some places that'll certainly catch you off guard as well, as you alluded to earlier if you're not careful. The fountain section, which is really 7 all the way through 11, a very, very medium speed corners area where you've really got to be on your game and push the limits as much as possible. And then coming through 4, 5, and 6, walls close in on you on either side. You've got to be very, very tricky through there. And I think the keys to success here today are going to be finding that point to be aggressive going down into turn 3. And also, as you mentioned, traffic management going to be absolutely crucial around here.
Especially with how many drivers that we have out on this track. We're close to 50 last I saw. So yeah, it's going to be a full track, no doubt. And here we see David Glenn right now, who is currently working his way around in the qualifying. Right now, he sits in 26th position, which sounds pretty far down, but as I mentioned, with nearly 50 cars, he's actually halfway up the field, so this isn't too bad. And he's coming into the last couple corners through 11 and 12, or excuse me, 12 and 13, rather, and up to the start-finish line on Sunset Drive, but he's going to abandon that lap, so not happy with how that one's going. And he is going to look for his pit stall in the meantime. Thomas Briggs has the provisional pole currently, but only by 0.04 of a second over Logan Grotto. So it's extremely tight, and that track position, DJ, is going to be oh so critical.
Yeah, it really is. Well, I mentioned you can get that pass down into turn 3. It's going to be very, very difficult to be able to do so. I think track position is going to be absolutely crucial here for these drivers. And Grotto and Briggs starting off at the front of the field are going to feel very, very happy. The other thing that comes with it, Joe, is you don't want to be farther down in the pack, because as you go through the sweeper of 1 and 2, that's a little bit of a flashpoint to lose the rear end of the car, and you don't want to be caught behind in an incident where you've really got nowhere to go if something were to fire off in front of you.
Yeah, that's a good point. The first laps of this track are known for seeing incidents, so that could be a serious problem as we watch Facciolo. And, well, there you go. Perfect illustration in the background as one car finds himself off into the concrete on the left-hand side. But Facciolo sits in third. He's not doing too shabby here today, and this will be his final qualifying lap that he is out on currently. Before the race, we do want to give you a quick reminder about the PCA Sim Racing social media, which offers in-race reports, breaking news, and announcements through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. To subscribe, key in the platform name and add /PCA Sim Racing. So with these last laps now getting wrapped up, can anybody get any higher? Everybody has set a lap so far in this qualifying. 48 drivers, all having at least put one down. So that's good news that we don't have anybody too out of position. At least we hope so. But it's still going to be difficult regardless, especially for those at the back as we continue to watch Nick come up to the last couple corners.
Yeah, as the checkered flag flies right now, so this is going to be Nick's final run. And Joe, I want to point something out that our director just pointed out to us, Ryan Bauer. The top 22 within 1 second of each other. So massive, massive props here to the PCA for putting this many drivers that are this close on pace next to one another.
Yeah, man, and that just is a testament, again, to how hard it's going to be able to pass because this many drivers, this close in pace, oh my goodness, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. James Hayosh, who is among the first ones to get the checkered flag here, crosses the line, but does not improve, sadly. Looking to see who else is coming across. Terrence Tong, not able to go any quicker. It appears Joachim Baker does go faster. He was in 17th, and he jumps up to 14th.
That's going to be a good run there for Baker. I think he's going to be very, very pleased with this. As now we watch Scott Kessel, currently back in 27th, taking the maximum amount of room there on the exit of turn 13. Let's see here if Kessel's able to improve. It does look like he is up to P9.
From 27th, that was an imperative lap for his race. So glad to see Kessel get that one out at the last ask. Well, that sets our grid, and we'll take you through the first 10 at the least, and then psych you through the rest as Thomas Briggs and Logan Grotto will be on the front row. Facciolo was not able to improve on his third place. Gregorato will start from P4. You've got Stephen Kemp in 5th today, and Jake Faulkner in P6. Chad Dick will be in 7th. He's got Joe Sinclair to his outside. We saw Scott Kessel make his lap and jump up to 9th. I'm sure he is ecstatic after that. Ben Leon will be in the 10th position. From there on down, you'll see the rest of the fields. And DJ, it is starting early in the morning, so at least it's not a terribly hot track, but I think that's little comfort in this situation.
Yeah, a little comfort here for these drivers. It's going to be about 67 degrees Fahrenheit as we get things going, Joe, and that's actually going to lead to some problems for these drivers. Getting those tires up to temperature by the time you dive down into the first couple of corners, particularly through 1 and 2 on the exit of 2, coming over that big bump. If you're not completely on your game, you could definitely find your rear tires spinning up a little bit because of lack of grip and lack of temperature, and that can throw you right off.
Yeah, the bumps are not going to be your friend, that's for sure. It's going to test a lot of drivers, and they are gridding up right now, waiting for just about half a dozen more, and then we'll be ready to go. Thankfully, this is not a standing start race. They're going to do a rolling start for this one, but it's a very short rolling start. In fact, I'm almost certain that when you get back to Ken Eskridge there at the very back of the fields, he's barely going to have started off his grid spot here before we get to racing. There you can see all the line of cars down between the trees on the run up to turn 12 here before they are sent around the last few corners.
Yeah, and that's going to mean that there is going to be a nice little bit of straightaway down Sunset Drive to be able to build up that speed, get a little bit into the tires, but it's still going to be a little bit tricky, I think, for those drivers farther back down in the pack. I agree with you that they're certainly going to be coming out of turn 13 by the time the checker flag flies, so they're going to have to be very, very careful. Everybody going to have to be on their toes here to avoid a big stack up with the walls so close.
Really crossing fingers that everybody is able to get through this first lap relatively unscathed. That's going to be a big ask, but you never know. We've already been surprised earlier in this season by the cleanliness of some drivers, especially my mind goes back to Road Atlanta and the performance we saw there on the first lap with 60 cars out there. So who knows? Maybe they'll shock us all and they'll manage to get out of this one with everybody completing the first lap without any damage. So we come around on to Sunset Drive once again. For nearly 30 years, this track tested drivers in open wheelers, in sports cars, and unfortunately, it won't in the real world, but here in the virtual world, it will be a bit of a plague for just about every series that comes here. But it'll be a fun one to watch as the green flag is out and on the loud pedal. Looks like Briggs is doing well. He's going to swing it into Casino Way as he is followed by the field. Let's watch and see if everybody manages to get through these first couple corners and onto Central Avenue.
Well, it looks like there from the outset that the first about half of the field is able to get through nice and cleanly, Joe. There you can see a little bit 2-3 wide, jockeying down into position here into turn 3. Looks like everybody's able to get through 2 nice and easy, though.
Yeah, I think they were given plenty of warning, and everybody's really taking it easy. There is some 3 wide that I have been seeing, but most have been giving space, and I did not see any accidents out of Casino Way, so that's good right there. But things narrow up here into 4, 5, and 6. We have our first incident. Looks like Terrence Tong and Joachim Baker had a little touch with the wall, but it was minor. They're both carrying on.
Yeah, they're both going to be able to continue on. Looks like a couple of drivers getting things a little bit wrong. They're coming out of turn 6, not in a way to lose the car, but to just lose a position or 2. So there is a little bit of jockeying here coming down Strand Drive. But as you can see on your screen, the first couple of cars through nice and cleanly, and Thomas Briggs already starting to build a pretty healthy gap at the front of the field.
Ooh, saw someone almost come to a halt. We got a stopped car there towards the back of the field. Didn't quite catch who that was exactly. And I think it may have been Sean Murphy, because I do see him still slow there in the background, and somebody's slipping up on their way out of the fountain section. As now we come over to Jeff Lewis, who is in P10. No change for your top 3. Briggs leads Grotto, leads Facciolo.
Yeah, as they bring their way through here, Lewis currently up 1 position, able to get by Ben Leung at the start right now. And now you can see the bouncing up and down of these cars as they try to jockey themselves into position here a little bit down into turn 3. I think some of the first lap jitters are out of the car, and now it's just a focus in for about 58 minutes to try to keep your car pointed on the right way.
Well, everybody did complete the first lap. Now, it wasn't without some having a bit of damage, but everybody made the first lap. So huge round of applause for every single driver here. That was massively impressive. It's not over yet because the danger is still lurking about over these 60 minutes. But for now, at least they've gotten underway.
Yeah, they've gotten underway, and this is the part of the race where you just try to calm yourself down a little bit. Your adrenaline, your nerves are going to be up at the beginning of the race. You're going to be worried about having those moments where you're going to have some contact with drivers. You've been able to escape the first 2 laps cleanly. Now it's about putting together the rest of this run.
On board with Kessel in P9. Chad Dick still in front of him. Little bobble from Kessel as he comes out of turn 11. But he holds it together, doesn't spin the car around. Still chasing that 930 machine and hasn't gained a position from where he gridded up. So no loss, no gain for the 48.
Yeah, trying to hold off here as Thomas Briggs sets the fastest lap of the race up the front of the field, getting a gap away. We continue to focus here on this battle, though. Being held up a little bit, I have to say, here by P8 of Chad Dick. That's really allowing for Scott Kessel and Jeff Lewis to try to close in behind.
Hearing that Elsom may be pitting in, Andrew Elsom. We'll see if he does, because he hasn't come in yet. No, I think that was a false alarm for him. Everybody does still stay out. So nobody having enough damage that they need to pit early, which we will see pit stops during this race. And that might also be a part of this to watch out for, I got to think, DJ, because if it's hard to pass on the track, then surely they're going to try some trickery with their fuel stops.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're going to see some drivers really going for an extreme overcut or undercut around here. The other big thing that may be the determining factor on when some of these drivers decide to come into pit lane is indeed that traffic that we alluded to a little bit earlier. If they're going to find themselves coming up against a big gaggle of cars, I think that's going to be the moment to pull the car down into pit lane, get a top off, and come back out.
Still, this 3-way battle remains incredibly tight. Lewis has been hanging out behind Kessel, who's still hunting down Chad Dick. Out of the last couple corners once again. and on to the main straight. Great exit for Chad Dick. He gets himself a little bit at arm's length from Scott, but Scott has definitely got Lewis within about a car length and a half coming up to Casino Way. Not close enough to try and pass into this chicane, but maybe into turn 3 if he can get the run down Central Avenue.
Well, the gap looked like it expanded there a little bit between Lewis and Kessel. We're going to ride on board with the 927 here. You can see a little bit of a poke down to the inside of turn 3. Not going to fully go for it. That is going to be Chad Dick, though, or excuse me, Scott Kessel, off the line a little bit coming into 3. That's going to be a little bit of blood in the water there here to Jeff Lewis. He's going to be looking to be able to be on the attack.
Oh, looks like we do have our first driver in pit lane, Sean Murphy. I suspect that is related to the fountain incident. I don't know if he caused that or if he was the car that we did see close up, but I do know he was slow in there, so I'm going to take a wild stab that it is related to what we saw before. Gregorado in 4th, watching the podium sitters right now. He's about half a second behind them currently, so still well within range.
Yeah, he's within striking distance here at this point for the Pacific Northwest driver right now. And I've got to think here that his strategy is just to keep on going around. He's not really close enough to put pressure onto the back of Facciolo, try to poke his nose at this way and that. But instead, I think he just wants to keep going. He's got a nice little bit of breathing room between himself and Stephen Kemp behind him. And that's all you need here at this point. Just stay within touching distance to the top 3 and hope one of them makes a mistake.
Ooh, we had a spin from Michael McKinney in the 527 out of the fountain section. He's having to just stay put and wait for everybody to go by, but it looks like that was a single car incident. So that's the good news on that one. Gregorado, though, is definitely doing his best to try and redeem himself after a second place last week. I'm sure he wants to try and get that victory, and he's sitting at least in a spot where he could potentially do that if he just holds on and stays safe from here.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was talking about. Staying safe, staying heads up, staying smart as you continue to drive around here. This is really and truly a circuit where you cannot take your hands off the wheel. You are not able to break concentration even for a minute, even coming down the Strand Drive here as we watch Jeff Lewis do, because if you do, the bumps will catch the car off and the car will start to spin a little bit if you don't have complete and total control on the wheel.
Looks like we've lost Brett Holmes and Duncan James, who are both out of this race now. First 2 retirees. We still have 46 of them out there, but Sean Murphy is heading back into pit lane, it appears. Not sure if it just needs more repairs or what. We continue to watch the fight on their way through the front stretch. This is in the mid-pack here. Just actually below the front of the field, really, as they come through turn 1. Ben Leon chasing Jeff Lewis, Scott Kessel, and Chad Dick for that 8th position. Down into turn 3 once again. Kessel's a little bit closer to Dick, but not close enough, and he can't quite send it in this time.
Yeah, Joe, and I was watching Jeff Lewis in particular there on that last run down into turns 1 and 2, and I think he's starting to get a little bit creative here. He took a later line going down into turn 1, trying to carry as much speed as possible. It didn't really play out for him. You mentioned there that Chad was able to be a little bit closer to Scott Kessel, and Jeff wasn't nearly as close there behind. So I think that's what you're going to start to see here at this phase, potentially, as drivers maybe just experimenting a little bit, particularly before we get a really heavy marble buildup offline.
Yeah, that's another thing that we haven't discussed yet, is the fact that trying to pass somebody is going to be quite a hassle once it gets late in the race. Joachim Baker now in 17th, down 2 positions from where he started. I think both of those lost on the first lap when he had that little coming together with, I can't remember which driver it was. I think it was Terrence Tong, actually, that he made contact with. So he's got some work to do here. He's got Dean Chapman in front of him. Mark Lacombe is behind him. Oh, that was very wide up ahead by Patrick Adamczyk. That's a pair of corners, DJ, that you really can't mess with. There's just no runoff on either of those right-handers.
No, there's no runoff there, and particularly coming out of turn 13, you're carrying such momentum. It's really a brush-breaking corner. You're not heavy onto the brakes, and you want to be able to take as much of a line there on the outside as possible to really try to maximize your speed. So if you just get a little bit off of the apex, that can really throw you off.
Now we're seeing Faulkner here, and he's lost a couple positions lately. That's because he had a wall strike coming out of turn 2. This is a relatively flat course, DJ, but that's one of those spots where there's just a little bit of elevation change, and honestly, it's at the worst possible place.
Yeah, what it is, the reason for it, Joe, is there's actually a little bit of a stream that runs in coming from Lake Michigan underneath the track there at that point. And so the track has to sort of crest over to get over the water. And you can see it here. You'll notice it right about there. And there you can actually see the water. Just got a little bit of understeer coming up over that bump, and that was enough to throw him out into the outside wall.
You can see just that one mistake was costly. He's got some damage on the car now. Not sure if his pace has been hurt too dramatically. I think he lost most of those positions just initially from the loss of speed. Right now, he sits behind Joe Sinclair, who has gained 2 positions since the start. Biggest mover right now, I think, is Dave Stewart. He is up 12 spots currently, and as I said, everybody did qualify. There he is right now. He's in 32nd position.
Yeah, doing some good job to be able to move his way up through the field there. 12 positions, nothing to shake a stick at, especially at Detroit Belle Isle. So a very, very good run for him. But we've got a little bit of a fight starting to shape itself up at the front of the field as we watch on board here with Thomas Briggs. Logan Grotto doing a good job of keeping persistent here and being able to close in on the back of the number 4.
Well, this is a new type of distraction I hadn't seen before. Austin Bucket was just black flagged, and as soon as he slid it into Casino Way, and unfortunately the damage from the wall hit that he had was too much. He is now retired. Terrence Tong was also given a black flag, I assume, for that first incident, that first lap incident, and Brandon Harrison was just given one for what looks to be a couple laps ago. So drivers already falling afoul of the stewards, even though we do have the majority of the field still out and running. We're watching Randall Ayers here in 33rd behind Jason Brodigan, has about 0.8 of a second to make up to them.
Oh, and that's going to be a big dive down to the inside there for Brodigan on Dave Stewart. That 914 we were following, and Ayers taking advantage there, or at least trying to, on the 007. Doesn't look like he was able to get it done, but I like that aggression. He noticed just how far off the 007 was offline, and he tried to jump in there. A little bit of a smile from Randall as well. I think that may have been a little bit of a cheeky move on Brodigan.
Yeah, he's enjoying himself for sure. Just behind him, wow, there's a pass Harrison on Peter Yurtsa. That was for, looks like 34th position into turn 12, which is very rare that you see successful moves through there. Yurtsa's slow for some reason. Brandon Harrison, one of our onboards as well right now. And man, you can really see just how much you have to work on this track with how much his hands are moving.
Yeah, and that's one of the things here, Joe, just those constant bumps that you really have to deal with. It's not nearly as bad here going down Central Avenue, but I'll tell you what, when you are on the Strand Drive on the backstretch, that is where you really, really feel it. Indeed, if you watch the Indy cars take to this circuit, you notice how they'll actually take a different line than the fastest way that you see these Porsches run. That's to avoid the bumps. That's how fearsome they are on this back half of the circuit.
Oh, bad news for fans of Peter Yurtsa. He's the latest victim of turn 2 and has had to take a tow into pit lane. It's starting now. The drivers are getting eaten up by this track, and we kind of expected that, but credit to them that we've made it about 15 minutes in. We've only seen 3 official retirements, potentially 2 more on the way, depending on if they decide to try and take repairs and get back out. I can report that Terrence Tong is in pit lane to take his black flag. Jeff Lewis still down in 9th, chasing on Chad Dick, but ahead of Scott Kessel, who was in front of him not long ago, I'm pretty sure. I wonder how long ago this pass was, actually.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I just checked back on my screen, Joe, to see what happened. I think Kessel may have just made a little bit of an error, and that forced him back down in the order. But the battle still continuing on here with Jeff Lewis keeping pressure onto the back of Chad Dick as they try to be able to get their way to go. About 0.5 of a second in between the two runners right now.
Wow, it was actually kind of impressive. It was on lap 6 and 7. Do we have the replay? No, we've come back live here. And I'm not sure if are we on replay here? We've got the live clock up on the left-hand side. So this is, but yeah, this should be somewhere around here, but doesn't look to be it, because this happened coming through basically from turn 12 all the way down to turn 3, that it took him to get that done, and eventually he did pass Scott Kessel. So fantastic stuff from the 927 as we continue to watch this fight. And Lewis, man, he's set off from Scott Kessel as well. Look at the distance behind him now, because we watched from Chad Dick and appears to be quite under threat.
Yeah, very much so, and I've been keeping an eye on this battle. Lewis has just been given a little bit of a poke and prod here to see if he can force the 930 offline, maybe try to make a little bit of a mistake and make Jeff Lewis's life easier. Chad has not succumbed to anything here just yet, though, and that's good news for the 930, definitely doing what they need to do to try to keep him at bay. You just got to run your racing line here at this point. Don't try to get cute, don't try to get defensive, just run the line you want to run and make that other driver have to put themselves into jeopardy.
Right now, that's what Chad Dick has been trying, or Jeff Lewis has been trying to do to Chad Dick, rather. Doesn't get him to go defensive down into turn 7 this time as they file into the fountain section. And when I say file into there, it really is single file pretty much every lap. It's dangerous to try and go side by side through those corners. And actually, I just saw an example in the back was we had an accident in there. It looks like, I believe that was Matt Dialosa in the 90 who found himself sending it straight into the tire barrier. Thankfully, it was only him, and somehow he managed to avoid about 5 other cars around him.
Yeah, Joe, I looked up just in enough time to see him falling down the order as we check back in on that battle with Chad Dick and Jeff Lewis. Lewis trying to put some pressure here to the back. You saw Chad have to go a little bit defensive there into turn 1. That's a good sign for Lewis. He knows he's getting into the head, and here comes the move.
Just had a great exit coming out of Casino Way, braking on the inside into turn 3. That's going to do it. He has to edge him out a little bit, but a light brush is all fair. So that's going to give him 8th place. Jeff is on a mission today.
Yeah, he is up 3 positions. That's the biggest mover there in about the top 15 or so. Mark Lacombe, who runs 15th, is also up 3 positions. So you can see as it gets harder and harder to make up those spots, the farther up you go in the field, but doing a great job. Chad's now going to have to worry because now Scott Kessel's going to be behind him.
Looks like Dialosa's incident has made him the latest one to have to exit the sim. Austin Bucket is now officially out. That makes 5 drivers who have retired from the race, but that's out of 48 starters. So again, I'd say we're doing pretty good. Scott Kessel has used that battle between Lewis and Dick to catch back up to them and is starting to be the next driver. Well, actually, I say the next driver. Remember, he was battling him before, and I guess it was more like a case of Lewis just saying, pardon me, excuse me, coming through, and now you guys just carry on what you were doing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Joe, as we watch them working their way out of Sunset right now. It looks like Kessel's a little bit far back to really make the run here that he would like to, but let's see if he's able to close down here through 1 and 2. I'm going to say that's a little bit far back at this point. That gap's about 5/6 of a second, but they've got to be careful. Ben Leong only sits about 0.6 of a second behind them, and if they start to scrap, Ben's going to be interested in this battle very quickly.
Now, I do believe we should be within the pit window, and I do see Patrick Adamczyk coming in. But one feature that we've been showing much of the time throughout Series 9 is this right here. And this would be a very helpful map for anybody who decides to pit in, DJ, because really, I think the key is going to be trying to find yourself some semblance of space out there.
Yeah, some semblance of space is going to be very, very hard to come by here. You can see pretty much drivers all over the circuit. And this is where it's really going to help to have a crew chief, an engineer, a strategist in your ear that's really able to keep an eye out on exactly what is playing out for these drivers. Try to find that little break in the traffic where you're going to be able to get yourself back out on track.
Love that we can see that. Really does show you how many drivers have been participating in this club class all series long. Up at the front, Thomas Briggs has done a good job of getting himself a little bit safer, but he's not been able to run away. That's the distance right now, 1.2 seconds down to Logan Grotto. So he's not close enough that Logan can really attack, but he also can't afford to make any mistakes.
Yeah, and that's not the position that Briggs would really like to be in. Although he has been putting in consistently quick laps, he's been within about 0.3 of a second of what we see as the fastest lap put down here today. Grotto has been within about 1/10 of a second of Briggs, so not letting him slip off into the distance. I wonder here if Grotto's maybe thinking a little bit long-term, trying to save his tires a little bit, save his stuff until the end of the race.
Yeah, that could be. And I got to think, you know, it's a lot of pretty low-speed corners around here, trying to keep the rears from being burned up. Is that going to be a huge factor, you think, once we get to the end of the race?
Yeah, even with the cooler temperatures out on track right now, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and the fact that this really isn't that abrasive of a surface, it is concrete, so it's going to run a little bit different than the asphalt that we're used to seeing, Joe. But because you're trying to get on the power off of those slow speed corners, exactly as you said, it's very easy to spin those rear tires up, especially with just how much torque is going through them on this rear engine design. So you've got to be very, very careful not to spin the tires. If you do a little bit too much, not only are you going to find yourself in a little bit of problems, but you're going to find yourself burning up that rubber on the rear.
I don't know if Yoakum actually touched the wall there out of the fountain section, but he came awful close. So you could see he kind of steered away from the wall on the exit, so he didn't seem like he felt all that safe either. He's now up one position, so he's made up from his early problems. Dean Chapman is the one that's in front of him that he's been trying to chase as we ride over the crest of Casino Way. And there you got a good idea of the rise over that corner. Not looking like he's going to be able to attack down into turn 3 for now, but he hangs on.
Yeah, the 330 there, you could see the rear end of that car wanting to dance a little bit on the exit of those corners, specifically coming through 11 and out of 2. That's a little bit of what I was talking about just a few moments ago, keeping that in play and making sure you're very, very soft coming onto the loud pedal.
Back to the battle for the lead. Wow, Logan made up a bunch of time here. And let's see, last lap was a 27.5. That was his personal best. Briggs with a 27.8, so 0.3 faster, but that doesn't explain all of the time made up because it was about 1.2 seconds. It's now 0.5 of a second, so he's continued on this lap, basically chopping down on the gap that Thomas has built.
Yeah, it looks like through Sector 3, I think Thomas may have had a little bit of a problem as Grotto was able to go about 0.5 of a second faster through Sector 3 on that last lap. So that's going to explain it as we look at the lap times there on that last lap. A 28.27 for Briggs, a 27.8 for Grotto.
That's the first lap in the 28s that Thomas has run since lap 6. And that's only the third lap that he's run in the 28s, honestly. So that, yeah, there must have been some actual mistake or maybe some lap traffic or something that caught him out. Well then, the 330 who we were watching earlier has decided he also wants to pit now. Maybe he saw an opening. He should be able to get to the finish from here. That, or he had some sort of wall contact that we must have missed. I'm double checking. And no, I'm not seeing anything of his recent time. And in fact, he even slowed and let Mark Lacombe through, before he pitted in. So I'm guessing that 330 car is basically in survival mode for much of the race. Jeff Lewis, though, is not in survival mode. He's in attack mode now on Jake Faulkner as he continues to pass car after car.
Yeah, and I think here Jeff is going to notice the same thing that I did on the rear wing of Jake's car. Do you see that right on driver's right on the right rear wing, Joe? There's a little bit of damage on that number 6 machine. that means he is going to be susceptible. He's going to lose a little bit of that downforce coming off of the corners in particular, and he's going to have to be a little bit softer on the throttle pedal to make sure he doesn't get that rear end slipping and sliding all over the place. There you can get a great view of that damage. That's going to be hurting him off some of these slow to medium speed corners.
Yeah, but man, some of these angles that we were getting there really showed you how Jeff is pushing the car. He was right up to almost touching the wall on the exit of 11, and in fact, now he's going to go for the move as he forces Jake to go defensive down into turn 3, but he's not going to get it this time. We'll have to try again later.
Yeah, he's going to have to wait here. My best guess is I saw him take a little bit of a look going down Strand Drive into turn 7. I think if I were him, I'd try to back up turn 5 a little bit, nail turn 6 here. He may actually be a little bit too close. I think he got himself checked up, and now he's going to find himself about 3/4 tenths of a second behind Faulkner. Not going to be close enough to make that move here.
He had plenty of qualifying laps. I don't feel like, unless he just couldn't seem to get the car hooked up, it doesn't seem like it was that bad of a qualifying, but man, it's impressive when you're able to make up positions this high up in the field, because remember, he's in the top quarter of it.
Yeah, I mean, he is well up the order, and as we kind of alluded to earlier, you expect some of those drivers farther down that are some bigger names that maybe just didn't get the qualifying lap together, and that could have been what caught them out. But Faulkner here, or Lewis here, I think rather, just a better race pace driver. It looks like he's got more.
Hearing that we lost Brandon Harrison, I'm checking to see what sort of accident caused this. And unfortunately, it looks like on lap 14 for him, he just self-spun into the wall out of turn 6. It's another place where you commonly see accidents here on this track. In fact, we've seen some massive accidents in the past from some IndyCar drivers as well here.
Yeah, we certainly have. Just because of the difficulty of this circuit, you can really find yourself out into those outside tire barriers and find yourself getting caught out. When we take a look back at the battle for the lead right now, Grotto hasn't really let Briggs slip off into the distance here. He's keeping up the pressure, Joe.
I feel like Logan is just waving in that rearview mirror of Thomas's, saying, "Remember me?" and making sure that he knows he is there. Facciolo's dropped off in a big way.
Oh!
What happened to Kessel? Oh, no.
Ooh,
Turn 6, and he's in a bad spot here. He's trying to stay put. He might be able to turn it around here if he goes quickly, and he's out of the firing line. Oh, thank goodness. Good job by everybody coming up to that. The race control has actually been fantastic. They have been telling drivers what to be aware of whenever there is a car stopped on track.
Yeah, they certainly have, and kudos there to all of them, letting everybody know, and kudos there to Kessel as well, locking it down, staying on the brakes. Is that a little bit of a weave, though, up ahead from Thomas Briggs? I think the number 4 is starting to feel a little bit of the pressure here.
He might just. By the way, of the pit stop, since we're getting close to the halfway mark, Jochen Bacher is our highest pitter so far, at least those that have taken scheduled stops. Ambrosino had a 2.4-second stop, and I'm not entirely sure. I think that may have been his spare car, actually, so that's probably what went down there, why he was in so briefly very early in the race. But we've been watching this battle for the lead between Briggs and Grotto up till now, looking to see who can manage to come away with the win, or will they see someone like Facciolo maybe sneak through, or maybe Gregorato finally redeem himself and get that victory.
Well, we'll have to see. We still have just over half of this race distance remaining as drivers continue to work their way around, and now comes the big question mark here, Joe. They are coming up behind some lap traffic. How is this going to fare for our leaders?
Yeah, this is where it gets extremely tricky. Albie Blanco, who I think just got a black flag. Whoop, and he's going to get out of the way and serve it. Oh, but we got a battle for the lead. There was an attack, a slight defense from the leader, but down into the first corner. That's a tough one. Oh, he gets him off the line, though. Briggs is going to be slow. Grado knows it. He tries to get the exit off the corner. He now goes to the left-hand side, down Central Avenue. Can he get this one done? He'll have to do it the long way around of turn 3. Briggs may have made a couple mistakes here, but he might still be able to get away with it, and he does for now. But Logan's now smells blood in the water.
Yes, he certainly does. And Joe, that was all precipitated by the fact that Briggs, I think, just carried a little bit too much speed coming down into turn one. The rear end of the car wanted to break away from him there, and that is what set up that whole run. Now, the other person who's going to be able to take advantage of this is the number 717 here, Nick Facciolo. Facciolo being able to close in behind right now. He's got the gap under a second.
Yeah, Nick is loving that for sure. But I get the sense that Logan is definitely getting in the head of Thomas, because right before we saw Thomas go wide through the first corner, Logan kind of showed his nose. And again, that's a very uncommon place to try and make a pass, as he once again kind of feints to see if he can shake Thomas Briggs. He doesn't this time, though.
No, he doesn't this time, but again, those looks this way and that's going to start to get into the head of those drivers in front of you. And the more they're having to look in the rearview mirror, especially around a street circuit like Detroit, the less time they're going to be able to spend on trying to put in the best lap that they can.
Bad news for Scott Kessel. It is insult to injury. That spin resulted in a bit of contact we must have missed, so he has been given a black flag for that. He's in serving that right now, a little bit farther away this time. So Logan, is not going to be able to get there, and he's split by the traffic as Yurtsa gets between himself and Briggs.
Yeah, good move there for Briggs to be able to get his way up by Yurtsa there. He's going to be very, very pleased to do that. And now we're going to see that gap balloon out just a little bit more. Volker Krebs, the next driver in line as they work their way onto Strand Drive right now. Krebs not looking like he's got any intention of getting out of the way here at the moment. We may see a little bit of a move off out of the second part of Strand Drive going down into turn 12, though.
Yeah, I hope so at least, or else this is going to be a bit of a hold-up for Thomas Briggs. They do not have to leap out of the way, but obviously they don't want them trying to defend the position here, since this is not for position. This is just being lapped. Is he going to get out of the way? Yes, this looks like where he's going to try and lift. Will he? Oh, I think he's trying to. This is very awkward, and that was less sweet, a little bit more sour for the Haribo car.
Yeah, that one got very close to being a bit of a sticky wicket there for both drivers, but able to avoid nice and easy. And now what all this traffic has done is Logan Grotto finds himself with a mirror full here of Nick Facciolo.
Oh, that did not go to plan at all. I'm sure that didn't leave them all too pleased. But at least it's over now, and they can carry on battling. It does actually separate them slightly, so this gives us a brief moment to tell you about one of our sponsors: driving technique, car setup, and telemetry analysis. These are just a few things you need to squeeze every last tenth out of your lap time. Join our very own physicist Nicky Chan, who you may know from his P4 finish in last season's Pro class, as he explains all this and more in scientific yet easily digestible YouTube videos at lasttenth.com. Watch today so that you can enjoy squeezing every last tenth off your lap time and beat those personal bests. Last tenth, better car, better driver. Well, this is a place where trying to get that last tenth can often be treacherous, because it's not just dipping a wheel into the grass here. It is brushing the wall. It is slapping the wall that are the consequences for going over the edge, as we jump back to Jeff Lewis once again.
Yeah, Lewis here trying to make a move onto the back of Faulkner. There was a little bit of contact in between these two earlier on in the race, and I don't think that is going to make nice here for the number 6 of Faulkner up ahead of him. They continue to go around right now. Faulkner continuing to sport that damage. You can really see on the rear wing and the rear end of that car the damage that has been done.
Yeah, a bit surprised that he's not been able to overtake Faulkner, especially with how quickly he disposed of Lewis of Kessel and his other rival there earlier on. And this is looking like a good run right here, coming down towards turn 1. He decides this is not the place for it, though. He tries to keep nice and tidy down to the apexes through Casino Way. Maybe he's setting himself up for Central Avenue. If he did, I don't know how successful it's going to be. He is trying to follow in the slipstream so that he gets every last oomph down the straightaway, but it's not going to be enough.
Yeah, not going to be enough there, and I think part of that was Faulkner doing just enough to kind of move offline a little bit there, break the slipstream, and be able to throw a little bit of a loop there to Jeff Lewis. So very, very good running there for them.
Baker's still our highest driver to have pitted in 22nd. Charles Yao just released him as well as he is pitting in. So we are seeing the strategy start to play out as we get farther along into the pit window. But this has really been one of the more thrilling battles that we've been watching. That's Andrew Elsom. That's a lapped car in front of them. Will that play a factor like we saw with that battle for the lead a little bit earlier? And will Andrew let them by a little bit easier? And Jeff Lewis is, I think, getting over the radio. Oh, no, Jeff Lewis is being black flagged. What was that for?
That was the contact that I mentioned earlier coming through turn 6. Lewis got into the... Ooh, that was very close. Lewis got into the back of Faulkner, and that caused Faulkner to spin around almost a little bit of a mini pileup. So that is what that black flag is for, Joe.
Oh, a real shame. And yeah, sorry, he just about outbraked himself into turn 12 and thankfully did not hit the wall, but that put him way far away from Faulkner for the time being. And he's doing a thing that you rarely should do, and that's trying to debate with the stewards about his penalty.
Yeah, that very rarely goes well in my personal professional experience here, Joe. Debate with the stewards never seems to play off, but here is Randall Ayers back down in 25th position, trying to close in on the back of one of the big movers of the race, Dave Stewart.
20 positions, and he's going to have to defend, which it looks like he will coming into turn 1. He's going to be shallow into the corner, but it looks like it's enough that Ayers is not going to have a response. Instead, it backs them into Robert Cottle behind them.
Yeah, and Cottle's going to be very, very happy to see that. He's now looking like he may have a little bit of the run here on Ayers. He's going to go down to the inside of turn 3, and even on the binders, but a bigger clip of the curve there for Cottle. This is going to carry on into turn 4.
Fighting them hard, and unfortunately it won't give a position despite having the inside. Great job by Randall Ayers in that situation. Certainly did not coddle Robert on that one and made him work for it.
See what you did there with the coddle. That was good.
I had
like
to.
That.
Well, onto the back stretch. I think Robert might get another try at things. He's close. He's going to have to send a dive. I don't think he should, frankly, and he's not going to.
Yeah, he's not going to want to make that move there, and this is going to spread out that battle a little bit. We've got a couple of more takers down pit lane. Looks like Michael Masters and I thought Jeff Lewis came down, but it doesn't look like he did.
He was serving his penalty, so he's finished that. Remember, they cannot take their pit stop when they serve a penalty. They have to come in and out as they drive through, and then they can come around and actually stop in their pit stall for their pit service. As we watch the 83 in this battle for, well, it was for 24th position, and then Dave Stewart pulled into pit lane.
Yeah, Dave's going to come on into the pits. They are the latest to be able to do that with about 23 minutes left to go, Joe. I anticipate that pit stop window being opening for about 8 more minutes or so. I think that's what it's going to come out to.
Yeah, I think you're right. You tend to see at the most about 45 minutes since they've limited the fuel to about 70% in these cars. Ooh, Greg Arado. Now there's our first driver from the very front of the field to pit in. So the number 7 is going to be the first to blink. Wonder if he saw an opening that he felt that he could slip into and make some time on the leaders.
Well, one way or the other, I like the strategy call there from him. We haven't necessarily seen him been able to keep as much pace as I think he would have liked to up behind some of the drivers in front of him like Grotto, Facciolo, and Briggs. So taking to the pits here to see if you're able to find the way in and out, best way to do it.
And I do believe, yeah, he is coming out in clean air. Maybe, no, it's going to be tight as we're watching one of the Brumos Porsches. No, Greg Arado just got overtaken by Mike Sachs. He was very close to a huge wide opening, but Mike managed to get through, so he is going to be a bit stuck in traffic. Let's see what the leaders are doing. The leaders are coming up on quite a bit of lap traffic themselves right now, so could still wind up being a net gain. We'll have to wait and see. This is them right now. They're approaching Sean Murphy and Patrick Adamczyk.
Yeah, they're going to be coming up behind them here. I wouldn't be too terribly surprised if I were Thomas Briggs to see him dive off down into pit lane, but it does look like the number 4 is going to stay out, but it's going to be Grotto that blinks and pulls the trigger down into the pits.
Okay, so it's those behind that are thinking now's our best chance. I guess they've got everything to gain and nothing to lose, whereas Thomas Briggs has everything to lose out there. Logan, now this will give us a good idea as well, since it'll be a lap difference between himself and Gregorado. So if he comes out ahead of Gregorado, then it didn't work out for the 7, but if he comes out behind, then it was a good call.
Yeah, very much so, and we'll keep an eye on that. Also looks like Chad Dick and Jake Faulkner both coming down into pit lane right now, so plenty of drivers making that call here at this point. There you can see them coming to rest in the stops. Trying to keep my eye here on the others as they work their way out.
Wow, okay. Logan is way, way ahead of Gregorado. I'm talking almost the entire Central Avenue straight, so... yeah, I'm not sure how far apart they were before, but I'm pretty certain it wasn't that far apart.
No, I don't think it was, not to that, and I think that is very, very indicative of Gregorado getting held behind Mike Sachs there that we mentioned. But as we watch right now, that is your leader, Thomas Briggs. He's coming up behind Patrick Adamczyk right now. Remember, Adamczyk's already been down pit lane to pick up that spare car.
And I think Adamczyk actually hit the wall there. If not, he came extremely close. Yeah, he did smack the wall. So that held up Thomas Briggs at that point. He still chooses to carry on. Facciolo has seen enough of this himself. Everybody but the leader is pitting in.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think for Briggs, if he feels confident about his pace, especially look at that gap up in front of him that he's got going right now. He has about 2.5 seconds up to Carlos Lopez Jr. right now, so he's able to put in some good hot laps to be able to go. And a 2.5 second gap with a 40-plus car field, Joe, that is a lifetime.
I also see Stephen Kemp in, but he has made contact with the wall recently, so I wonder if this is less a strategy call and more I got to come in and get that repaired. But he is going to be coming through and getting his service, and he'll be back out, and they do have a spare car in this series, so if he needs it, he can take it. Dean Chapman, Ben Leon also pitting in. Grotto, currently our highest driver to have pitted, up in P3. And, oh, did Briggs just clip the wall coming into the fountain section?
Yes, he did. It was a very light brush. It doesn't look like there's any damage onto the car necessarily, but he did clip the wall a little bit, Joe, and I wonder if that's going to be the impetus for him to come on into pit lane.
Yeah, so I'm not seeing a meatball flag next to his name right now, so I think he should be okay to carry on if he wants to, and he does. So he's fine with that little brush that he made, and he'll now start on to lap 29. Probably has about 3 more minutes, so maybe 2 more laps at most before he should be at the end of the pit window.
Yeah, I think that's about what he's going to be running to here at this point. And frankly, I get this strategy. If you are Thomas Briggs, everything is fine and dandy. Why not just keep on keeping on until you have to come down into pit lane?
And for Gregorado, who we saw make that early stop, he still hasn't overtaken Mike Sachs, who needs to pit in himself. He's got Balistieri in front of him as well, and in the lapped car, but Balistieri is going to free them. So that's one less car now that Gregorado is going to have to overtake. But Mike Sachs is going long, much to the dismay of the number 7.
Yeah, and that is not helping Gregorado here whatsoever, and I'd be a little bit worried here at this point if I was Enrico about losing even more time to those around him. I think he may still be able to hold on to 4th place, but any thought he had of being able to claim 3rd has certainly gone by the wayside with him getting held up this much.
Yeah, I just think it wound up being slightly off. He probably would have been in a much better position if he had been ahead of Mike Sachs. He would have had to chase and pass Balistieri, but as we saw, he just pulled out of the way once he got up to the back of him. Meanwhile, Thomas Briggs finally pits in, but he's pitting in at the same time as a backmarker, Carlos Lopez, and Lopez was slow into pit lane compared to Thomas. I wonder if that maybe cost him another few tenths.
I think it may have, and that could be music to the ears here of Logan Grotto. Joe Sinclair going to come down pit lane. They're out of P2. That should hand 2nd place back over to Grotto, who here makes his way through turns 12 and 13.
Lopez hits his pit stall, waiting for the service to finish. We want to watch out for Grotto. Grotto's actually coming past the start-finish line. Briggs is coming out of his stall, and I think Grotto's got him. He does. That was a pit stop pass for Logan Grotto, a classic early peel, late reveal.
Fantastic. Fantastic stuff there from Logan Grotto to be able to get that move. Now it's going to be on Thomas Briggs. Can Briggs respond here in these final 16 and a half minutes? He's got about 1.1, 1.2 seconds to try to make up.
He's got to make the pass on track, though, from here, and he's been leading for this entire race, so we haven't seen how he is going wheel to wheel at this track. Does he feel comfortable trying to be the aggressor?
Well, that's what we're going to have to find out. Attacking is one thing, defending is another. We're going to have to see how Briggs is really able to respond here at this point. I can tell you right now, just since they've come around those last couple of corners through 4, 5, and 6, the gap has expanded upwards of about 1.3 seconds here as they run.
Facciolo behind by 2.7 to 3 seconds there behind the top two. Still there if they start to battle and hold each other up, that he could catch back up, or if they wreck each other. And Grotto still having trouble, though, as he exited the fountain section, just couldn't quite get it down to the apex with that lap traffic in front of him. And the lap traffic is still not out of the way. Richard Franco is unfortunately become a bit of a thorn in his side.
Yeah, and that's going to be slowing him up. The gap is now down to about 0.7 of a second there. He is going to get out of the way. Franco letting your leader, Logan Grotto, on by. The rest of the drivers who have yet to take a pit stop here, Jeff Lewis and Gary Reese. I see both of them coming down into pit lane. Wouldn't be surprised if we see the same out of Terrence Tong.
Yeah, other than that, Brodigan and Ayers, I think, and Scott Kessel potentially, are the others that we're seeing need to take a pit stop. So there are still a couple farther in the back of the field. And Stephen Kemp was given a black flag for a bad rejoin. Also saw a penalty handed out to Scott Kessel for a passing incident, it says. Okay, so that's interesting.
Yeah, not entirely sure what that one was. Looks like Kemp is down into pit lane. Ayers is down into pit lane. I think this is the end of the fuel window here for these drivers, Joe, right at about when we said it would be.
Yep, so that's pretty much all of those towards the front end. Having their pit stops done. So your order, now that that's over, is Grotto leading, Briggs is in second, Facciolo's third, Greg Grotto is in fourth, and Sinclair sits in fifth. Chad Dick is up to sixth place. Remember, he was in a big fight earlier and has dropped pretty much every one of his rivals that were attacking him earlier in the race. Leung's in seventh, and Faulkner is in eighth, with Backer is in ninth, followed by Chapman rounding out your top 10. So that's the order of the top 10 after those pit stops.
Yeah, doing what they were able to do to try to push their way forward right now. It does look like our closest battle, indeed, on pretty much the entire circuit is this battle for the lead. So exactly what you want coming to the end of everything.
And for Logan, this is exactly what he doesn't want, because look at all the cars in front of him. Randall Ayer, Lonre Sarumi, Scott Kessel, Charles Yao, Robert Cottle. They're all just lined up in front of him. And he's going to have a really rough time unless they play extremely nice and just pull out of the way. And in fact, every single one of them is for position.
My goodness gracious. This is going to be the exact opposite thing.
And he goes a little deep. Here comes Briggs. Briggs is going to get through. Great move. Oh, no. Trying to get up the inside. Maybe a little bit of contact. He backs out of it. Briggs doesn't hit the wall. Not sure if the stewards are going to see fit to investigate that, because they both seem to have got away with it. That was ambitious from Logan to try and retake that position. But, man, that move from Thomas to see that unfold and know exactly where to place the car, that was perfection.
Yeah, it certainly was. Absolutely remarkable stuff there for Thomas to be able to get that into position. My goodness gracious, though, Joe, you can't get much closer than that or this.
Still going by the lap traffic once again, managing to go by Charles Yao, and they still are dealing with Randall Ayers in front of them. Bit slow off the corner there for Thomas Briggs. Logan Grotto, can he try and get that track position back and take the lead that he had earned through the pit stops? He's going to go for it. He's down to the inside, but he's extremely shallow, and he's too shallow.
Way too shallow. There was just no way he was going to be able to roll that momentum through such a narrow corner like that. But the fact that he showed his nose, the fact that he flashed to the inside, that is going to be creeping into the mind of Thomas Briggs, knowing that no corner is safe.
I love what we're seeing here. This track that is known for being so tough to pass, and yet we're still seeing these moves and this side-by-side racing between our leaders. Usually you tend to think that maybe they'd wait for a safe one, just try to get to the finish. No, these guys are fighting fiercely for this win.
Yeah, they really and truly are. They are giving it absolutely everything. Now they're going to come back onto the back here of Randall Ayers. And don't look now, all of this battling, Nick Facciolo may be back in this conversation.
Yeah, Nick is saying, yeah, you guys just keep doing that. Just go back and forth like that a few more times. I'm having fun here running down this lead, and I'm about to make this a 3-car fight. In fact, he might not need them to do that because they've got Randall Ayers and Lonray Sarumi directly in front of him. Is this going to be a little bit of an easier time? Randall could maybe lift a little early. Oh, no, he's not going to, and he chops off Briggs.
Oh, and that's going to blunt Briggs' momentum through one of the faster parts of the circuit. I think he may have just been able to gather up another little bit underneath him here as they run. But here comes Grotto. He's going to again have to take that very shallow line down into turn 1, tries to hold it out. That's not going to play. Side by side, though, between Ayers and Briggs.
Wow, second verse, same as the first, except this time they had a lapped car. My goodness, Lonray Sarumi is not getting any favors. Or excuse me, Randall Ayers, that was actually that they overtook just there. But to be fair, I mean, they had to go. And yeah, Randall was in his own race, but boy, he did not make it easy on those top 3.
No, he certainly did not, and that's allowed for a big extension here of the lead by Thomas Briggs. He now has about a 1.1 second gap as they run, but it's going to be Facciolo that is now in the catbird seat all over the rear wing there of Logan Grotto.
Facciolo, yep, you're right, within 0.3 of a second. Logan's going to have to catch back up to Briggs, but I think this traffic is showing that you'll get your opportunities if you stay patient. Oh, Sarumi, another one that really isn't pulling out of the way. Now he is. He's going to let 1 by, 2 by, 3 maybe. Oh, Nick Facciolo got the worst of it, but he did get through. But Randall Ayers said, okay, thank you for being polite, and that's why you don't usually want to go to the side, because that was a position for Randall.
Yes, it was, but as we've said before, Joe, the traffic giveth and the traffic taketh away, and right now it gaveth a little bit there to Logan Grotto, who's been able to close the gap under a second again.
Facciolo lost the gap. It's up to a second. So yeah, you know, you can try and be polite all you want, but sometimes it will bite you if you are a lapped car and you're in fights with other drivers around you. Not everybody's willing to try and be so gentlemanly and will attack when they see an opportunity. As we watch the 33 get within half a second once again of Thomas Briggs. They come onto the strand too far back this time. 8 minutes left to go. We're seeing another 7 laps before we're done.
Yes, we are, as you said there before, too far back there as they work their way onto the strand. But I think here, if you are Grotto, just closing in and trying to focus on those braking zones, getting about a couple of meters later each time, just carry more speed into the corners, see what you're able to do, see if you're able to close that gap and keep the pressure behind.
Logan really likes to try and play those mind games. That's another time we've seen him go shallow into a corner, even though it was highly unlikely he would manage an overtake. So I think he's just trying to keep Thomas on his toes.
Yeah, I think he is too, and he clearly has that car under control. It's not like he's taking those moves and really locking up or having the ABS kick in on these Porsches. He's diving it in on the limits, just trying to see if he can elicit a mistake there out of Briggs.
And it has worked a couple times, to his credit. It has shaken Thomas off the racing line, but he's going to have to pull that time back because, unfortunately, driving off the racing line tends to slow you down a little bit as he kicks the dirt up coming off of turn 3. Once again, using every inch of the track he can to try and gather up the 4. As we are on lap 36 now, it is still Briggs, Grotto, Facciolo, your podium by a huge margin, by the way. It's 9 seconds down to Gregorado, who's in 4th.
Yeah, Gregorado not exactly looking like he's got the best run here. 10 seconds back of Facciolo, as you said, and he's got a little bit of company. Joe Sinclair's within about a second of him.
If I'm Nick Facciolo, though, I'm still running at 99% right here, not just because of those two battling and maybe giving me a chance to get back into this fight for the lead, but because if those two come together, I want to be close enough that I can pick up the spot and they can't just turn the car around and drive off and continue on to the win.
Yeah, they're just going to try to continue their way along here. Briggs having a look in his rearview mirror. Credit where credit's due. Grotto able to close in on that last running. The gap's now down to about 0.4 of a second. Takes a slightly later apex there down into turn one, just trying to carry as much speed as possible. And Joe, that was the fastest lap of the race there for Logan Grotto.
Turning up the wick once again. 27.288. In fact, that's 0.2 faster than the quickest lap for Thomas Briggs. So yeah, man, he has really got a fast car today as he comes through turn 4 and into 5 once again. What's the lap traffic look like in front of him? Scott Kessel's up next, Robert Cottle, and Michael McKinney. I think those are the only 3 that are likely to catch up to. You see them on the bottom of your screen right now, heading down the strand. So there's the 3 directly in front of them.
Yeah, so they're going to have to deal with him here in, I would imagine, a lap or two's time. The gap is holding at about 2.9 seconds right now as they work their way down into the fountain section. Grotto able to keep up that gap under about 0.5 of a second. It does look like Facciolo is starting to slip off the back a little bit, though.
Absolutely. It's about 1.6 seconds now, so he's not able to go nearly as quick as them. But like I said, I'm pretty certain that he's just going as fast as he can so that he remains a factor just in case, because you never know at this track. We've seen wilder finishes all the time. Logan knows this too. He knows that he can't give up.
Yeah, he certainly cannot. We've talked this entire race long about you have got to try to be on your game because it is so easy to make a mistake. Yes, Thomas Briggs has driven a very, very good race at this point, but one errant error here, one errant mistake, enough to throw it all away.
Looking through to see who our hard charger is at this point, and Ken Eskridge, I believe, is from literally last on the field, 48th to 28th. He's up 20 positions. Nicely done by Ken out there as we continue to follow the leaders. There is Ken on screen right now.
Yeah, there's Ken Eskridge working his way around right now, trying to see what he is able to get going. It's closing in behind. I've got to give the 06 some credit there. Looking not too shabby as here comes Grotto.
Oh. He got a run, but he's on the outside coming down, and he's off into the marbles. Both of them are into the marbles. They managed to keep it out of the wall. Hello to Nick Facciolo. Once again, he's there.
Once we thought he was out, he pulls himself back in. He is right back into this equation, Joe. Here they go.
Both of them were breaking as deep as they dared into that corner. Oh, did he hit the wall? Did Nick Facciolo just clip the concrete?
I think he may have done very, very slightly, but he definitely lost time there coming down into turn 12.
Yeah, I think it was a little brush with the rear of the car, just kind of lost grip as he tried to accelerate out. I think he got too eager with the action picking up here. Meanwhile, as they look to try and lap Scott Kessel. Whoa, and Kessel's around. Wreck. Oh, no, into him goes Thomas Briggs. He couldn't avoid it. There was pretty much one way to go, and unfortunately that way was between the wall and that wrecking car, and that sent him right into a closing gap.
Oh, you hate to see that there for Thomas Briggs. And again, there's a little bit of damage there on the right rear of that wing. Let's check out this replay, though, from on board. Briggs just had nowhere to go.
I mean, he could have tried to go to the left, but I don't think he would have loaded up in time. Yeah, that was pretty much his only option. And off he sees Logan Grotto accelerating away. Now, amazingly, he doesn't seem too damaged because Facciolo hasn't caught up. Did Facciolo have a problem, actually?
I wonder.
He's got damage.
Yeah, I'm seeing some damage to the rear end. I wonder if he got involved in that and we just didn't catch it, Joe.
Yeah, he did. He got clipped and wound up in the wall. So Nick is also damaged. Gregorato could maybe come back and try and take third away from Nick. I told you, it is not over till the checkered flag is thrown at this track. Briggs is not giving up. Look at that. He's still within a second.
Yeah, he is pushing, and he has taken a big clobber of the curb there coming down through turn 12. He is doing everything that he can. It looks like maybe just steering slightly out of whack. You can see him just having to kink over to the left there a little bit, but that's frankly a lot better than I thought it would be.
Coming up and over past the scene of the accident. Well, he's got it under control. Last lap, obviously, going to be a bit weird because of the incident, so we won't really know what his race pace should be here. And by the time we find out this next lap, they're going to be taking the white flag. And Logan Grotto has about an 0.8 of a second lead. And I'm going to reiterate myself, and you're going to be sick of hearing this over the next 3 events after tonight's. It is not over until it is over. And Greg Grotto has found that out as he is now up into 3rd, and he brings Sinclair through as Facciolo is not even going to get 4th. He falls to P5.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye here on Nick Facciolo. That car has some massive, massive steering damage. You can see it coming down Strand Drive. It is crabbing pretty hard here, Joe.
That is a real shame for Nick that he wound up. He was the one that had the most reaction time to try and avoid that incident, but still just could not get out of the way. It's such a narrow track out here, and you have no place to go 9 times out of 10. As we come to the white flag, it stays at about 8 to 9 of a second. So it appears to me that Briggs is still running pretty decent pace. Grotto crosses the line with the white flag with about a 127.6. Briggs a 127.5. That is unbelievable with a car that is all messed up on the nose.
And just to be clear here, that is about a 10th slower than his fastest lap of the race. Wow. We've seen a lot of big movers up through the field here, Joe, but for me, for my money, for these last couple of laps, Thomas Briggs, driver of the race.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, even if he doesn't win. If we could split that, it's not an official award. If we could split that between the pair of them, they both deserve it here for this battle. That was just unbelievable stuff. I'm hoping that we manage to get to the finish clean here between them and nothing silly happens from here. It's down to 0.6 of a second. Thomas is closing on Logan.
He is. It's down to 0.7. Here they go. I don't know if he's going to have enough time to be able to do this, but my goodness.
I mean, that is the tenacity of the 4 there. I just cannot believe that he's still running as fast as he is and gaining on the leader who's got pretty much a clean car compared to his, which is just an absolute poor form right now. So as Logan Grotto comes out of the final corner, he's clean there, and that's going to be the win for Logan Grotto as he manages to take victory here today in the 3rd race of Series 9. Briggs will settle for 2nd, but what a run for him to be within half a second at the end. Greg Grotto with a podium. We wondered if he could do it, and he didn't give up hope. He still will get to spray the champagne.
And I think a pretty happy Joe Sinclair there. You saw him weaving and darting in excitement coming down through Sunset. So a very happy driver there. A little bit of a battle farther back in the field as it works its way through. This is Daniel Florian.
Yep, we still got fights going on here at the end of the race, and you got to try and battle for everything that you can here at the end as Balistieri is being hounded by Florian and Lewis in behind him. Lewis probably hoping for a little bit better than this 16th position. He's down 5 spots. Florian, though, is up 16. Even if he doesn't get Balistieri, this 15th place is one to be proud of, and I'm sure he will be as he crosses that finish line.
Yeah, there he goes as we wait for the last couple of drivers to come across here, and there they come. That's the number 19 crossing over and being able to take the final checkered flag.
23 drivers will be able to finish all 41 laps of this race. We're going to come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Brake a little earlier if that's going to be the case. He's actually got a nose ahead as they come down into the braking zone. He's going to do it the hard way. Welcome back to Detroit Belle Isle, and we kind of expected an exciting race, maybe in a different fashion, though. Yes, we saw a few retirements, but not nearly as many as we thought that we'd see, and it was actually a pretty clean race, just a few spins and scares, and an exciting battle to the finish for the win, which Logan Grotto came away with the victory, coming down to literally the last couple laps. Thomas Briggs unfortunately got a little bit robbed, you have to think. He got caught up in an accident from a spinning lapped car, couldn't avoid it, but man, he still carried on and kept it within half a second at the finish line, even with a damaged car. Greg Grotto was in third with Sinclair, finishing in fourth position, and Facciolo was a P5. It was Chad Dick who finished sixth, and Ben Leung in the seventh position. Jake Faulkner was eighth. Didn't get to talk about him a whole lot except for a good battle in the middle of the race, and he still wound up losing 2 positions, but I think he deserves a pat on the back. Joachim Baker was ninth after starting 15th, and he got involved in the lap 1 incident, so well done to him. Dean Chapman rounds out your top 10, and then from there on down, you'll see the rest of our 48-car field, of which I want to say I think we saw about 37 or 38 of them actually get to the checkered flag. But let's talk to Logan Grotto about his win here today, because I'm curious to see if he felt confident he could take that one and his thoughts about that battle after the pit stops. Because Logan, you pitted a little bit early, and we were curious if that was going to work out. I assume that was a strategic call to get you some clear air, which it didn't quite initially, but it did get you out of the way of all those battles. When you came out in the lead, did you think, this is it, I just have to take it to the finish?
That's exactly what I thought. And, I took a gamble there, got out ahead, and really just was hoping to drive away with it, but got unlucky with traffic there. And Thomas had great pace, so he was able to catch right back up, and so we had to battle it all the way to the end.
Yeah, talk about that battle, because that looked fantastic between the pair of you. A lot of respect. We did see some moments of both of you having some scary issues, either going deep or trying to put your nose into disappearing gaps. But what are your feelings after that? Is that some great camaraderie or any ill feelings?
I mean, that was great camaraderie. It's really great to race with somebody that you know will leave you room and that you will leave room, and just makes for a much better race. Thomas had great pace, and it's really tough to pass on this track. And so we just had to battle it out.
And then, of course, the elephant in the room, the wreck that eventually gave you the lead to the finish. What are your feelings on that? Were you a little disappointed? Was there relief that you wound up getting that lead back? And what was happening in your head in the moment when you had to avoid that car?
I mean, it's a little bit of both. Both Thomas and I got unlucky with some traffic there. I think once I was ahead and Thomas took the lead back, that was partially instigated by traffic. So just unfortunate. It's part of racing with cars on the track.
Well, a victory is going to be very helpful in the points championship to put you farther away from Briggs. Anybody you want to thank to help extend this gap?
Of course, you guys at Podium Esports, our sponsors, Six Sigma Racing and Pirelli. As always, my fiance, and of course, our team, the Marginally Above Average Sim Racers.
And that was the 33 of Logan Grotto, your winner here today. The man who I'm sure is feeling a little bit hard done by is Thomas Briggs. DJ's caught up with second place.
Thomas, first and foremost, let's start at the end there. After the incident with Scott Kessel, you managed to bring that car around. Just how much damage were you dealing with there at the end?
I don't know. The steering was a bit wonky. There was definitely not enough front downforce. It was really tricky. The car was right on the edge, but I managed to get it to the line.
You managed to get it to the line, second place in a race where you led a large portion of it. Talk about your emotions right now on the podium.
Of course these things happen, so you just have to deal with them. So, I was sweating. It was such a stressful race, and I was absolutely heartbroken at the end. But it's all good. These things happen, and Scott's my friend, so these things happen. So we're just gonna focus on the next race and be ready to win there.
Well, speaking of the next race, you did my transition for me there. As we look ahead to the Indy Road Course, that updated scan, you think you're going to have a better result out there?
I don't know. I always don't like to predict these things. I like to just say, we'll see what happens when it happens. So.
Well, we wish you luck when it does happen there, Thomas. But as for today, a second place, nothing to shake a stick at around Detroit. Who'd you like to thank?
I'd like to thank my dad and my mom and all my friends who are watching, and all the sponsors for this event, and PCA for hosting these races.
Well, we thank you for being able to be out there and put on one heck of a show. That was Thomas Briggs, your second place finisher here today. And Joe, I believe you have been able to catch up with our third place finisher, Enrico Gregorato.
Yep, and Enrico, I kept banging on the same pot all race long that you cannot give up because you just don't know what's going to happen around here. And I feel like you're a good example of that, having suddenly found yourself in third place right at the end.
Yeah, I lost touch with Nick, got stuck in a bit of traffic, and then I thought, well, fourth is good. I was going to be happy with fourth, and then I saw really slow, and thank my lucky stars, I guess.
Exactly. Well, those lucky stars weren't with you the entire race, though, because after that pit stop, I was watching, and it seemed like you were so close to getting into a lot of clear air, and you came out behind Mike Sachs. How much frustration were you feeling when you emerged behind that orange and blue car?
A little bit, but I mean, Mike is pretty fast, so I was happy to be behind him rather than trying to make my way through the back markers. So it wasn't too bad. It was a little bit frustrating, but I was fourth at the time, so it was okay, and I had a fairly big gap behind me, which quickly evaporated when I came across a bit of an incident, but it's all good.
Yep, all's well that ends well, I suppose. When we head off to Indianapolis for the new road course next time out, are you looking forward to getting to race there and try it with a new chicane and whatnot?
Yeah, I've done a few laps there. I must say I really love the old layout, but I'm sure this one will grow on me.
Yeah, I think once you try it, you'll be pleasantly surprised with how fun that one is. Well, congratulations on a podium. Anybody you want to shout out to before we go?
Yeah, thank you. My family, as always, James Franznik, who was my spotter tonight, looking up for incidents. All the guys at 208 Racing, who are great friends and a nice laugh. Our sponsors, Pirelli, Six Sigma, and Podium, you guys, of course, for the great broadcast, and everyone at the PCA Sim Racing. They do such a great job, and it's always fun and a pleasure to race with PCA. Thank you.
It's a pleasure for us to call it. That was your third place finisher, Enrico Gregorato. And that's going to wrap us up with a big thank you to the Porsche Club of America. But before that, we want to mention that we'll see you for the Pro Class just tomorrow night, 9:25 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, November 3rd, live here on Podium Esports. We want to thank the PCA Sim Racing title sponsors for Series 9, which of course includes Pirelli and Six Sigma Sim Racing, as well as a huge thank you to lasttenth.com. Better car, better driver. A big thank you to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, and a huge thanks to our team tonight, DJ, Ryan Cameron, and Dougie. Also, none of this is possible without those behind the scenes of Podium Esports, Ryan Bauer, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak, and I'll see you on the track.